church, so that if the bishops in, say, the United States wanted to allow married priests or women priests, they could, because there's no theological objection to women priests or married priests, however much Rome may squirm and argue and complain. There's no theological objection. There's no theological necessity for celibacy, anything like that. Decentralization would allow it to be flexible and to survive, but the longer they try to keep this thing centralized and rigid, the more likely it is that it will just crumble. It's unsustainable as it's going along at the moment. But no, let's not destroy Rome.
I wasn't asking.
Unbelievably beautiful. Have you been to Rome?
I have, and I wasn't asking that for my interest in having Rome destroyed at all, but there are some prophecies that assert that Rome will be destroyed and the papacy will be destroyed.
Well, I mean, I think the papacy may well be. I mean, there's this prophecy which has been, it's about 1,000 years old now, which the prophecies of St. Malachi.
I was just going to mention him.
Taken quite seriously in the Vatican. And they say that this present Pope will probably be the last, or maybe it's the one following. I'd have to check exactly.
Right. It has something to do with olive or something like that, the olive tree.
Yes, yeah. It's either this Pope or the next Pope that sees the end of the papacy. And Jung had a similar kind of vision. I don't know what you think about Jung's visions, but had a similar kind of thing. But you don't need to be a prophet to see that Rome's either got to be flexible and adapt or fail in this modern world. It's as simple as that. You can't carry on the way they're carrying on and hope to survive.
You are an editor of, is it a Masonic magazine or newspaper?
It's a magazine. It's about 80 pages, and it goes out to about 230,000 people, I guess. It's quarterly. It's stress enough.
I would imagine that if you're an editor of a Masonic magazine, are you also a Mason?
Yeah, I've been a Freemason since the early 90s.
Can you share a little bit, whatever you can share, about the paradigm of a Freemason and how, as a Freemason, that would impact or contribute to your research, either questions or analysis?
Well, the thing with Freemasonry is that at its heart, I mean, it's a very ancient system, much modified, but at its heart, it's a journey towards insight into spirituality. I mean, that's its point. Unfortunately, the majority of Freemasons don't understand that, and they see it as a kind of dining club or social club or something of the sort. So with the magazine, while it's basically there with articles about Freemasons who do this or that, what I try to do in every issue is to have something which pushes the buttons of spirituality and the spirituality contained within the journey of Freemasonry, because if that's ever lost, then Freemasonry is finished. But as an ecumenical system, because you're not allowed to talk about politics or religion in Freemasonry, and you can be of any religious or any political persuasion and join, I think it's valuable, because in this modern world, we're getting more and more isolated in a sectarian manner and in a political manner. I mean, look at the disputes between politics in all our countries, how heated these arguments get, or look at the bitter disputes between religions that are occurring, whereas in Freemasonry, there's none of that. Everyone's there in pursuit of spiritual insight. Now, it's not a particularly focused system, and it's had a lot of manipulation by people who didn't really understand what they were doing. But at its heart, it's good, I think, and I think it's a force for good, and it's a force for morality, it's a force for dealing honestly with people. And why I like it is because most of the people in Freemasonry that I meet are of a similar persuasion. They understand that things that they couldn't talk about, there might be lawyers or judges or airline pilots or school teachers, they can't go banging on about spiritual journeys in their jobs because people would think they were weird. But in Freemasonry you can, and you can explore these topics and be with other people who care about them, frankly. And I think that's the reason. If you're with people who care, you've got a kind of mutual support system, so you don't feel isolated. One of the great problems in the modern world is isolation. And so we need organizations who bring people of like minds together, and that's what happens in Freemasonry. I like it, and I think it's a force for good, but it needs constant vigilance. Otherwise, it too could go the way of so many other organizations and become a source of conspiracy or a source of domination.
I have a question about Freemasonry. Is it true that in Freemasonry that there are secrets, or that there are levels of initiation and expertise and knowledge?
Well, yes, I suppose.
So if somebody says the president was awarded a 33-degree Masonry degree, what does that mean?
Means pretty well nothing.
Okay.
Means pretty well nothing. I mean, I'm a 30th degree Mason. I was asked if I wanted to go further. I declined. To become a 33-degree Mason, it's sort of an administrative, the top sort of 3 or 4 degrees are more administrative than initiatory, though there are initiations associated with them naturally. And, you learn things that people in other degrees wouldn't know, but they're not necessarily more spiritual.
Okay.
All you need, just the basic 3 degrees of basic Freemasonry have all the secrets and insights that you would ever need, frankly. That's my considered opinion, after X number of years in Freemasonry. The problem with Freemasonry is there's a lot of people who see it as another way of getting a little bit of status or a little bit of power or thinking that they're better than someone else. You've got to sort of try and combat that tendency towards self-aggrandizement. Happens in every organization, and it happens in Freemasonry, and it's a sort of cancer that runs through it, and I oppose it constantly in my magazine, and one has to just keep opposing it, otherwise it would take over probably. It's, again, you just need constant vigilance. I think what lies behind your question is someone who's a 33-degree Mason going to have more spiritual secrets than, say, an 18-degree Mason or a 3rd-degree Mason? My answer would be no. He knows more about the Scottish Rite system, but the Scottish Rite system isn't necessarily more spiritual than the basic Blue Masonry, as it's called in the States, system.
Did Freemasonry help shape your research abilities or give you some type of access to something that enables you to do the kind of research that you do and ask the kind of questions that you do?
No. I had access to Masonic libraries and things prior to joining. I joined, actually, because I just rather enjoyed the people I met and got on with them and realized that here was a whole group of people who were rather similar to me. But subsequently, what can I say? There's sort of an alternative information network going on in Freemasonry, and you learn a lot of very strange and interesting things which are known that Freemasons have been involved in that you wouldn't know unless you were a Freemason. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Political or religious things. I've not used any of them in my books or my research, but I do find some of these stories fascinating. It's just out of fascination, really. Nothing that I've done in Freemasonry has actually facilitated the kind of research that I do. I can say that quite clearly. In fact, my research is quite separate from my Freemasonry, to be honest.
Right. I just wanted to know if it helped shape the way you're doing the research or allowed you to become more receptive or...
What would have been useful, probably, is if I'd been a Freemason when I wrote Holy Blood, because there's a whole kind of conspiratorial network in France that we explored in Holy Blood. And